The football team loses 31-20 to Michigan. We'll talk about what that means for Jonathan Smith and the team. The basketball team won their exhibition game against Bowling Green 75-66. The hockey team goes on the road and sweeps Northern Michigan. And we'll talk about the upcoming Big Ten tournament for the women's soccer team. I'm Connor Clifford. We're talking Michigan State sports. So the football game went about as poorly as expected. Michigan State losing 20-31 at home to Michigan. Paul Bunyan stays in Ann Arbor for yet another year. That's 4 years in a row. I know that the first two weren't legitimate. You can argue that all you want, but it's still there on the record books. 4 games in a row. And these last two were against bad Michigan teams. Not that MSU was good, not that we were expected to win either game, but these are bad Michigan teams. When I was in the stadium this past game, I did have a few Michigan fans around me. The group to my left was a group of students there, and they were basically in agreement with me. We kept going back and forth talking about how bad our teams were. At one point, they said, "We're awful." And I said, "No, you guys are bad. You're not awful. We're awful." And it was basically who was worse. Now, we were all, of course, cheering for our teams. When good plays happened, we cheered. We weren't saying that we wanted to lose that game. But the point goes that this rivalry used to be so much bigger. And the passion from the fans was still there on Saturday. Everyone still knew how big that game was, but it did not seem like the coaching staff knew. Leading up to the game, the press conferences, the reporters were asking questions. I could tell that they were trying to get it out of Jonathan Smith. They asked, "What does this game mean to you?" And he kind of dodged the question. I mean, if you're the coach for Michigan State, you need to know that this game means everything. This is the biggest game of this season. Even Sharon Moore said that. The Michigan coach said that this was the biggest game on the schedule. Why can't Jonathan Smith say something like that? He said this game is big for the fans, it's big for the alumni, it's big for the players, but he never said what it means to him. This is what the season revolves around. Everyone likes beating, Ohio State. People like beating Wisconsin. We care about all the games that we do, win and lose, but nothing compares to this game. This is the big one. I can only imagine that the donors and the people that are talking with Jonathan Smith are trying to get that through his head, that we don't care necessarily if we lose by, 24 or whatever we lost to Indiana. If we beat Michigan, that's fine, but we can't keep losing to these bad Michigan teams. With that being said, I don't think that Smith's going to get fired this year. I still don't. The only possibility I see that happening is if we lose to Minnesota, maybe they do it before or during the bye week. I still don't think that's going to be the case. As I've said for the past couple of shows, we're going to be competing with major programs. LSU just fired their coach. That's another big program, and I would imagine that it is probably more appealing to coaches than Michigan State. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe that's the doomer in me. But I can't imagine someone leaving LSU to take a Michigan State job. This isn't the opposite of Nick Saban. Nick Saban coached at Michigan State. He left, ended up eventually going to LSU. Of course, he ended up at Alabama. Who are we going to get? Are we going to get the top guy? No. Are we going to get the second top guy out there? No. Maybe we get the sixth best guy. Now, with that being said, I do get the argument that if Indiana can change their program and compete at a high level overnight, basically, what they did with Cignetti, then Michigan State can. I agree with that. But I don't know who we're going to get if Smith is gone this year. And I also get the argument that winning some games is better than winning just the first 3 against your non-conference opponents. It's just I don't know where the state of this program is. What is our identity? Defense used to mean something to this program. Defense used to be the number one thing. Even in those bad years, when D'Antonio was on his way out, our defense was still stellar. I remember just tearing my hair out because we couldn't get anything on offense, but we still were in the game because we were losing 10-7. We were losing 14-10. Close games because our defense kept it in. Now, I will say that the defense did seem to do their job this week. I got to hand it to them. I know that the offsides call was a bogus call. Everyone's seen the clips. We should have had the fumble. We should have had it in our own half of the field. On a 10-7 game, we honestly should have took the lead, but we didn't. That's the way it's called. I don't think that that's the reason we lost, but I wish I saw something from Smith at that point. You've got to be screaming at the refs at that point. And it seems like anytime that the camera's on him or you look over when you're in the stadium at him, he's just talking to someone on the headset. Show some emotion. I think that's partly the most frustrating part. I mean, when Barnett was the coach in the interim stage, it was the same thing. Show some emotion when you're coaching, please. I get that we might not win every game. I get that we're going to lose to Michigan every once in a while. And this is 4 years in a row, and you guys seem like you don't even care. I mean, looking ahead, we got 4 games left. If you get 3 of them somehow, we're bowling. And even still, it seems like this is going to be a disappointing year. Coming into the season, we knew that a bowl game was the expectation. And I still think that there is a realistic path to it. But at this point in the season, it just feels devastating. Losing to UCLA at home. Getting blown out by UCLA at home on homecoming. The Indiana one I can live with. Indiana's fantastic. USC I can live with. We're out in the Pacific time zone. I get it. The Nebraska game we should have won. UCLA we should have won. Heck, this Michigan game we should have won. And it just seems like there's no fire behind this coach. And I have to keep going back to it. I don't think we should fire him. And it's just such an oxymoron to say that. Such a contradiction. I don't think he should be fired. Because I don't think who we get next is going to be any better. For $39 million, I don't think we can make that bet. I think we have to ride out at least another season with this. It's going to suck. But I think that's the way that we got to go. And hopefully something changes. Now, I do say we probably need to get something changed with some of the coordinators. But I don't think we're firing Jonathan Smith this year. Now, the day itself, tailgating was a lot of fun. The game had its moments. I mean, it wasn't like a game that I dreaded. I dreaded being at that UCLA game, just getting destroyed at home on homecoming. This game, I mean, the Michigan fans near me, yeah, I had one obnoxious one, but for the most part, it was your friendly banter. We're going back and forth, each giving jabs. Somebody saying, "Oh, where's Mel Tucker?" and then going back and saying, "Well, Mel Tucker has a winning record against you." That type of stuff like that. That's fun to me, as long as it doesn't get too heated. We did have one fan, like I said, behind us who was taking it too far, but for the most part, it was a good time, at least in my section. Moving on to basketball, this game was going on while I was driving back to Michigan, so I was watching it on my phone. Didn't have the greatest of views, but I did watch basically the majority of the game. My wife was driving, so I was able to watch it in the car, and we had the audio going on the stereo. Like I said earlier, MSU won 75-66. Cohen Carr had 17 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 5 blocks. Kohler had 15 points, 10 rebounds. That's a double-double. Fierce had 12 points, 9 assists. The starters looked good. We started out with our starters in there, took them all out, put all of our backups in there. Um, Backups didn't do great, didn't do horrible either. Bowling Green was able to keep it close until we put our starters back in there. Then Michigan State started pulling away again, started subbing people back in and out. It's an exhibition game. I'm not going to put too much weight into Bowling Green was playing even with us. Bowling Green played even with us last year, and we ended up making the Elite Eight. So the offense in the first half was pretty good. We ended up scoring 48 points. Defense, on the other hand, not so much. We allowed them to get 39. I'm sure Izzo was not very happy about that. But I mean, 48 points based on how the offense looked last year, losing all of the players that we had. I think it was 70% of our offense we lost last year. So that's a good sign that we were able to score pretty early. Michigan State went 6 for 14 from the 3 point line, which is about 43%. Pretty darn good, especially again when we were losing some of our better 3 point shooters, Jace, Holloman, Akins, Fiddler, even. So I was pretty happy to see that we were able to put points up pretty quickly. Second half, not so much. First 10 minutes, we did not score much. I think we only scored about 10 points or so. Um, that was really my only notes at that point. And that was with our starters in, so a little skepticism there. But like I said earlier, I'm not going to put too much weight into this exhibition game. Next Tuesday, so when this goes up, it'll be tomorrow. That one probably is going to have a little bit more substance to it. That one's against UConn on the road at UConn. That's going to have a full crowd there. We'll see how the boys react to that. Um, but yeah, it was a fun game. Cohen Carr had a lot of highlights. It was cool to see some of the uh, new guys get in there. Trey Fort was able to hit 2 threes. Fears had 2 threes in the first half. So I don't think our shooting's going to be as bad as it was last year. But I do think that it's going to be similar in the sense that anybody at any time could just take over a game. I think that's going to be kind of a game changer. Izzo said last year, nobody can prepare for our best player because he didn't know who our best player was. And that was, of course, before Jace Richardson started doing Jace Richardson things. But, you know, I think this is going to be a good season. I really do. I don't think that we are ranked properly. I think we should be closer to the 10 to the 15 range, at least at this point. I think we definitely have the potential to be a top 10 team. I think we have the potential to win the Big Ten again. Uh, yeah, I don't have too much else to say about basketball. I mean, it's an exhibition game, um, but it was a fun one. Moving on to hockey, the team went up to Marquette, Michigan to face Northern Michigan. Uh, this was 2 game series, Friday and Saturday. I didn't get to watch either of them, so I'm kind of basing all my takes off of recap articles in AI. So take what you want from that. But the first game, sounds like Tommy Manisto scored the opening goal with about 2:54 into the game, and that's all MSU needed. Final score was 4-0. Trey Augustine making 24 saves. I believe that's his second shutout of the season already so far. Second game, a little bit closer. Sounds like Northern Michigan got out to an early 1-0 lead. Michigan State came back, took a 2-1 lead, tied it up 2-2 for Northern Michigan. And then after that point, it was all MSU from there. They ended up winning 6-2. Uh, the sixth goal was on an empty netter. So really a 5-2. I tend to not count those empty netters unless, it actually was a 1 goal game or something like that. 5-2, even if you're pulling your goalie, it's very unlikely you're going to come back down 3. So, um, nonetheless, good for the goal differential, I guess. Trey Augustine seemed to have a good series. Always great to see that from your goalkeeper. The rankings just came out. We're still number 1 in the nation. Michigan is number 2. They had a good series this weekend as well. And then Western Michigan's down to 3. Penn State is 4th. That's who Michigan State is playing next. Those two games are going to be in East Lansing at Mun Ice Arena. That's November 7th and November 8th. So nothing coming up this weekend for the hockey team, but two massive games the following weekend. Hopefully those are going to be on the Big Ten Network. I believe that they're supposed to be, but who knows for the hockey teams? They always seem to get a distant third place in the minds of the Big Ten Network. Definitely football and basketball first, and hockey and women's volleyball are definitely a close third and fourth to that. So we'll see how the team does in about 2 weeks. We'll end the show talking about Michigan State women's soccer. We'll end on a high note for this one. The team took down Nebraska on the road this weekend. Heading into the game, they were ranked number 13. Now, I'm not a specialist in the women's soccer realm. It looks like these rankings have not been updated since October 19th. So I don't know if, that 13 is a respectable number or not. I did notice that they have a women's soccer RPI. If this is anything like football, you'll know that the RPI is not to be trusted, but this seemed to be a relative good number when I compared the ranked teams to this RPI. That has been updated through games today, October 27th. Michigan State is ranked number 8th in that. So they will be heading to West Lafayette now for the Big Ten tournament. Talking about that Nebraska game, though, Emerson Sargent scored the only goal in the contest in the 62nd minute, and that was assisted by Kennedy Bell. And then our goalie, Noelle Henning, had a big game. She actually ended up saving a penalty kick early on in the first half. So that, if she didn't make that save, it probably would have ended in a tie. But nonetheless, she got that one done. They're going to be the number 2 seed in the Big Ten tournament. Now, all the first and quarterfinal rounds are played in West Lafayette, by the way I see it. And then the semifinals, they would go to St. Louis, those teams that win that game. So Michigan State will be playing the winner of Northwestern and USC. That game's going to be November 2nd. And then for assuming that they were to win that game, they would be playing the winner of Penn State and UCLA. So good stuff happening there on the women's soccer front. Always love to see that from some of the programs that don't get as much attention. Won the program with that today. A pretty big disappointment on the football side of things, but between basketball, hockey, and the women's soccer team, an overall good weekend. We'll see what next week has to bring for us. As always, go green.